Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to see you on YouTube. Apparently, StreamYard is no longer available on Facebook groups, only Facebook pages. I do have a page, and by next week, I should have that connected. So if you're here, wonderful. If you're not, I will be posting this on both channels, my Facebook home and also matured musicians. I have two wonderful people with me, one great musician, one great recording producer. Is that what you are, Dave?
That's
David?
right.
Okay, David Mark. And the artist here is Scott Malone under the name of Scott Malone Music. So with that, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Chad Christ. And he's going to be changing his write-up a little bit. He started out catering to, in his studio, drummers and guitarists, and he is now doing production. So he's producing recordings. He does all mine. He has been since COVID. And if you have any needs at all, and I hope I'm not competing with you, David Mark, but he does have a studio in Edgewood, Washington. It's under Luscious Moss Studio. You can find it on Facebook, or you can just search. It'll come up. Or Chad Christ, and if you know him at all, he is the lead player for Heart by Heart, which has the original two members of the Heart band. But with that being said, I want to know you guys a little better and your backgrounds. And we had a little problem getting started today, right, guys? Anyway, we are here, and it will be recorded. So with that being said, I would like to know both your backgrounds. I'm going to start with Scott. He's a musician, and I want you to give me a little bit of idea of what instrument, what were your influences, how did you get started with music, Scott?
Well, I started playing. I was tinkling on pianos and everything since I can remember 5 years old or younger. But first things I really learned how to play were the ukulele.
I have one.
And I played drums in the school band from the time I was 10 until I was a senior in high school, actually. Somewhere along the road, when I was a sophomore in high school, I took classical guitar lessons. And we used a Frederick notebook, which is really great. It takes you all the way from beginner to just learning how to finger all the way to four string.
Right. Where do you live? I mean, just a quick interference here. I wanted to where you live that you had that kind of training or education on music.
At the time, it was Foster High School in Tukwila. And,
okay.
The music program was really exceptional at that time. Jack Waddington and Greg Goss were the guys. Both of them were amazing musicians. Jack Waddington was a choir director, and Greg Goss was the band director. And he wanted to bring knowledge of classical music to the students. And so I took all 3 years, and it was pretty amazing. I was really lucky to go to school there, and I continued on to Green River Community College, as did Dave. And Dave is also a fantastic drummer, by the way.
Okay, so you are a musician. You do the heartbeat of the band.
That's a nasty rumor, but yeah.
All right.
But from there, from high school, I went right out and played in top 40 cover bands for from the time I was 20 till I was 23 or so, and then got the original music scene, and I was playing Central Tavern and the Ditto and the Rendezvous and the.
What years were that? I missed it.
It started in 1984.
Is that when they had music every single night of the week in Seattle, in Tacoma?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is that when they had all the? So I've been told by some of the older musicians that they used to have music every night in every tavern, Monday through Sunday. And I was about that period of time, if I remember correctly. Was that part of that scene?
I played in the original bands, not like in Ballard, I think, and that they had, and other outskirts they had a cover band that were played all the time. And I did end up playing in a, before 1984, I was playing in steakhouses and whatnot, 4 nights a week. But the original scene was quite different. It was quite a bit more sparse. There was a handful of venues, the Hall of Fame, the Vogue, Ditto, Central Tavern, for us guys that were, later became the grunge scene, I guess.
Yeah.
It was really sparse. It was difficult. There, later on in the late 80s, there was a place called Guerrilla Gardens, and your original musicians will remember that. You paid a fee to have a stage, a sound man put you on there, and there'd be continuous bands would come on that stage. You'd load in, play, get off, and another band would come on, and that just went on all the time. It's great. It's a good proving ground for original bands to learn their craft.
Oh, you had, when I was looking at your bio, it looks like you played for some pretty well-known bands throughout. Now, did you tour with them? My memory is what it should be, so I don't remember if you said you were touring as well.
Most of the touring I did was when I played in cover bands that were going up into Canada and, all along the West Coast.
Yeah.
Really, the original bands that really didn't do tours is mostly local gigs. We travel a little bit, but not really a lot. We weren't super successful in the 80s. After I got into my 50s and got back into original music and joined like Ray Hayden's bands and Tony Cherokee bands. These are both really great keyboardists. I was a short stint with Janice Lives and with Ari Moore band. I was honored to be able to play with them. I think 8 months or a year or something like that, and we did some really cool gigs. Ari and Eddie are fantastic people, and I had a really good time with them. I was really focused on getting into a touring band, and by the time I was 57, it's kind of like I gave myself a couple of years. I said, if I don't find a touring band, I'm just going to get out of live performance because going back to playing B clubs, and not if there's anything wrong with that, but
not everybody likes that.
The most successful original band was probably Seventh Revenge, and we had an independent label deal and one album, and we were working on a second album, and One Hard Rock Rising in Seattle in 2013, which I was 54 years old, and the next band member was 32, I think.
Yeah.
So they came and they stole me from another band. I was actually playing in 2 bands at the time, and when I joined them, that was the 3rd band I was playing in at the same time, and I joined it when I was 52. And hey, can you maybe you guys could find a 25-year-old guitar player to play with you, more your age? And they go, no, we want you. And so it's quite a compliment that they want an old.
Absolutely. Must be good. You have to be good. Yeah, I get it. I was up there in years before I ever got a band and started playing, but that lasted about 15 years and I stopped in 2015, so I get it. Now, I want something a little more sophisticated, so we'll see what happens. Now, what I didn't get was when you got out of high school, I'm assuming you finished high school, and were you playing during your high school years, or when did you start playing out in the public, or is that all part of baggage?
Well, there was a really uncomfortable time there because when I was 12, I took up the guitar a little bit. I played kind of folk music, like, If I Had a Hammer and those wonderful folk.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And I play, a few other little ditties here and there. But when I got into classical guitar, I got into really rigid thing. I was, all finger style picking and 4-note chords and whatnot, moving up and down the neck. And I really wanted to be a rock guitar player, but I had really no concept about how to go from a finger style classical guitar player. A couple uncomfortable years when I was 17, 18 or so, and I got a Strat, and I tried, and I got laughed at a few times because I wasn't bending notes like Jimi Hendrix. And so I did learn after a while. I just ear trained myself to be able to emulate Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton and those guys. But it took me a couple of years. By the time I was 19, I was playing professionally and playing in bars. Back then, there was laws against me being in there, and they sometimes I go in the back and hang out outside during the breaks. Quite often, though, I just hung out with everybody in the bar, and it was pretty cool. So I did that for. Anyway. Your question was, about playing professionally. I did about 19 years old. I started actually making a little bit of money playing in bars, and did it till I was about 23, and then went into the original scene.
Yeah. Okay. So, David, you're on the line.
Okay. Fire away.
Yeah, you're a drummer, and I'm just learning the cajon. And of course, when I learned the cajon, first thing he gave me, I don't know if you know Tommy Cook. He's a local drummer, plays over at Peebo's in Mill Creek, and he gave me a sheet music,
Wow.
drummer sheet music, right? And I'm looking at this, and I can kind of figure out on the sheet music where you're hitting the cymbals, and I obviously the snare, and I kind of get the bass, but I'm not doing that on a cajon. But it's giving me a background in the drumming business. Let me tell you, trying to get all those parts of my body to work in unison on the guitar, I just have to move one hand and a strum, is a challenge. So I deeply respect drummers. Trust me.
Yeah, it's I don't know. You have to have it was something I always did my whole life. I was always beating on things and driving everybody crazy. School. How it was. So it was kind of just a natural path for me. And
when did you start? How old were you when you started the drums? Was that a high school thing or grade school or band?
Oh, well, I was kind of like Scott. I started playing instruments when I was 5 years old. It was accordion was my first instrument. And I played reed instruments all the way up through college. I'm a college-educated musician. I just didn't want to be a band teacher in high school. So that's,
Yeah.
So, and I also Green River Music Company out of high school. And, but I had been drumming since I was 12.
Wow.
Played in many, many bands. And I eventually left the area because every band I was ever in, we were always writing our own material. And I wasn't really a huge fan of doing cover stuff, really, ever.
Right. Yeah.
But back in the 70s and 80s, you had to do that to showcase your music. And so that was really the only reason for doing any covers as far as any band I was ever involved in was about. And so eventually I ended up moving down to Texas.
Yeah.
Had a band that I actually started here, which is a long story, but called the Nasty Habits. And we couldn't find anybody we liked to sing, to be the front. And
was that rock? Is it a rock band?
Huh?
Was your band a rock band? Rock and roll?
Was it rock and roll?
Oh, yeah, it was all hard rock.
Okay.
Very hard rock, like Black Sabbath and Ronnie James Dio.
Okay.
On our set list was the lightest stuff we have on the set list would be Van Halen, right? So in Texas, we were the heaviest band they had on the American Bands Management and Charlie Hatchett Entertainment talent list, right?
Well, Texas, when somebody says Texas, that reminds me of Willie Nelson and country music.
Oh, no.
No, plenty of rock in that scene, right?
This was, Houston, when I first went down there, they had probably 11 or 12 bars that were 1,000 to 3,000 seat bars.
Wow.
Make money, you could make a living doing it. And of course, the talent agencies put you to work all over the place. So you played in New Mexico and Oklahoma and Kansas and Louisiana and Missouri and all those places. So you played all over the place out there. We would go out for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time. the guy that ended up singing for the band, him and his wife owned a rehearsal facility called the Hole in the Wall on Northwest Highway in Houston. And that's kind of where I started getting my producer chops. We had a 16-track MCI studio in there that was owned by a guy who was a songwriter that got a front from his publishing company to do some demos. And so that's kind of where that all kind of got started, and all the experimenting that I did with all that. I could go on and on. I go down rat holes, but it's
So you made a transition somewhere. You stopped doing that and you started doing production.
Yeah. So the only cover stuff I had done in the last 20 years was I played in a country band with Jonathan Harris called the Jonathan Harris Band, and then some of the guys from that branched off and we started our own thing, which was $5 Fine. But then I quit doing all that when the market just kind of fell apart. It was kind of a way to make money and have fun. I was in a big band in the 90s called the Seattle Blues Review, and it was a 9-piece horn band. So we had a 5-piece horn section and a full. It was a blues. It was like a Delbert McClinton kind of band, right? Really rock and blues band. That's where we met guys like Jerry Cantrell, right? So we were rehearsing at NAFS over on West Marginal Way with all these like Dallas in Chains guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, huge band in one of those rehearsal facilities, and all those guys would come in and go to stick their head and see what the hell's going on here, right? And and Jerry Cantrell was always bothering us. He wanted to play in the band, So our band was the one that did the grand opening for Bad Animals when Ann and Nancy built Bad Animals at what used to be the K. Smith Studios on 4th Avenue.
Yeah, I'm country. That's gone. I'm from Minnesota, so I don't know all these places you're talking.
Yeah,
I'm sure people out there do, but not me. Sorry.
So the Seattle Blues Review has sticks. So we wore 40s double-breasted pinstripe suits and fedora. And so we were doing,
imagine.
we were doing the grand opening show. We finished our first set, and we were over talking to the sound guy, and Jerry was there, and he comes up and he says, okay. So if I buy a suit, can I play in the band? So it was that. So then in 2010, 2009, I was involved in a traffic accident riding my motorcycle and almost left leg. So I decided that I was going to build a production studio on an outbuilding on my property in Milton. So I did that, and I started recording bands and playing in the bands. I was playing in the first 2 bands I recorded. I was drumming in those bands, which was Tin Man and the Moss Brothers Band.
Okay.
And it was the first 2 records I recorded. I have a 2-inch 24-track machine. I recorded both of those records to tape, and then recorded them into Pro Tools for editing. And so that's kind of how the studio thing started up here.
Right.
And then in the last, 7 years, last band I played live was the Derby Picnic. And then after that, I just decided that playing live was something I didn't want to do. I was trying to preserve what hearing I have left.
Yeah.
Music. And so I've been producing. I started working with this guy shortly after I opened the studio. And
I just heard he just posted. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but he just posted. Can't remember. You didn't post it on any of my posts. You posted it singly on a song that you had just finished. Was that your production? I can't think of the song. What was it called? It was a beautiful song. What was it called, Scott? The last one that you posted.
Released this week?
Yeah.
The Rain or Whisper?
Yeah. That was one of them. I think there are 2.
There's 2,
yeah. And you did those?
I did.
Those are both
nice.
And him, really, without his production skills, those songs, they'd be
I know about
really
that.
big difference. It's amazing. If you heard that I sent him, you would know.
Yeah. Well, with that kind of background, not only that kind of background, but you also had the education as well. I mean, you started out pretty well prepared for music, it sounds to me. And yeah, I can see that to me. I have somebody who is producing me, Chad Christ. And, it takes a lot of, you really have to hear that stuff. I mean, you have to know what they want, how to put it together, how it sounds the best, and still stay within what the artist wants, the limits that they're giving you. And, uh, poor Chad, I put him through a knothole and he puts me through one. So I get the whole scene. And it's, that finished product. I have a few that I have out there that I listen to now and I think, oh my gosh, that was, we've come a long way, baby. And there's new tools out there all the time. And one of the cheating kind of tools he had, I don't know what it's called, but a program that can actually, if you're a little bit out of tune in any of your words or whatever, yeah, you have that too. It's amazing. Just amazing.
Digital media. So Pro Tools, whatever your DAW is.
Yeah. I believe it's Pro.
Melodyne makes it possible for people that probably would never be rock stars. They could be rock stars because.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Any little timing, anything you want to talk about, any little timing problems, or out problems can all be repaired. And that's actually part of the job. Is it's kind of the Maytag repairman as well as
yeah.
I hear it in my head to come speakers.
Yeah, I get it.
Be reading my parts. Don't be fooled.
He does what, your parts?
Times to get them.
I'm brutal. I'm the bully.
Yeah. I've come to the knowledge that producers can be very difficult.
I have this thing about, it's a performance.
That's right.
I'm after that performance. And so I'll do whatever it takes to get that performance out of the artist.
Right. Exactly. I have one song I'm kind of proud of. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to it on my channel, but it's on YouTube. So when you get this and you look, it'll be in there. And it was about my son my son committing suicide at 19. It's called Lavender Fields. And I had a little help from a guy who has what's called a Chris Jones band, is his name of his band. Yeah. And he, Chris, yeah, great. Well, he's a great musician and he helped me get some of the words. Because it was so close to me and so personal, it was very difficult. And I really enjoyed the finished product. And Lynn Sorensen played the violin on it. He had to do 2 takes. Cost me a little bit of bucks.
I heard you were a Limberlost fan.
What?
A Limberlost fan.
I am.
I did all that.
Oh yeah, they're so great. I loved what I liked this. I don't know if you did this one or not, but it's it was done by Elvis, and they put it out in their own way. The Black Velvet.
Black Velvet, yes.
Do you remember that? Did you produce that one?
I did that too, yeah.
Oh, I just love that, and I love that.
I've worked with them for 8 years, and the only thing I did not produce was a Good Fight. I recorded it, but Timothy Eaton is a famous producer, and he produced that one. He came up.
I have a question about something you said about Jonathan Harris. Was it Jonathan Harris or Jonathan Harrison?
Harris.
Okay. Didn't he have a fiddle player? Was it the Long Knives? Jonathan Harris and the Long Knives? Is that the same guy?
No.
Okay.
It's Harris. Jonathan Harris. And he was, it's a funny story because at the time I was playing with a big band called Big Nasty. It's a blues band from Tacoma.
Right.
And we did a festival over in Lakewood, and there was these 3 cowboys standing against the wall at the building a ways from the stage. And after we got done playing, they came over and approached me and asked if I'd be interested in playing in that band. And
wow.
I had my first professional gig in college was playing country music and the zip code on Black Diamond in Maple Valley. And and that was the only thing I really knew about country, except that it had become rock and roll I called it rock and roll with a twang. Yeah.
Today, yeah, that fits. So how'd you go ahead. Go ahead.
I ended up joining the band and rehearsing up, but I didn't know any of the songs tied by title. So for the longest time, you know, if you go to the next song, I'd be going, how's this one start?
Yeah, I get it. I'm trying to do the cajon, and you're on your own when it comes to starting, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
how did
anyway,
you
so
get-
he and I have been together now for, I don't know how many years now, since about 2013 or 12.
11 or 12 years, yeah.
You know, and I like his approach because he I like to have acoustic guitar in almost anything I produce, and the way he does it with his, you know, anytime I need acoustic guitar and anything, I go, this guy, because he can actually, he's not a strummer, he does, but I mean, he is a finger picker and he's very good and pulls the tone out of the guitar, and that dynamic in like a hard rock song like what you're hearing we're doing is this big contrast, creates this big contrast in the music where you got this nice, beautiful front end of the song, intro into the song, and all of a sudden, boom, it's in your face, you know, with the
Yeah,
guitars
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
I love producing music like that. And so, and he and I have a similar background from, you know, throughout our whole careers. And so when we started hooking up and working with the stuff that he'd written, it was just automatic, you know, it was real simple, great
Good.
chemistry.
Yeah, yeah. I think I understand a little bit about the connection people have if they don't go to Nashville with producers. I mean, for instance, I have a song. I usually start out with I heard a song, and there's something about that song I like, and then I try to transfer that and create the song based on maybe the speed of the music, you know, how fast or slow it is. And then there's something in these songs that just hit me, and then it starts me on my path. And so I give him what I heard, and then I give him what I've written, and then I tell him how I want it and what I want it to sound like, or what instruments, whatever. And half the time he's reading my mind. he's the one. He's the one who's got the degree for, or whatever it was that he did over in Berkeley in the music department there. So he makes it come alive, huh?
That goes with the job. So if you're producing, you know, and that's one of the other things is that we kind of co-write a lot of the stuff. It starts
Right.
off,
Yeah.
and I'll hear something, and it'd be great if it stopped here, or
Right.
hey, did this. And our bass, the guy we use for bass, Phil Suggs, he and I have been a rhythm section for 33 years. This last
Yeah.
few years.
You know, we work together.
We have a great synergy, and he plays on everything we do.
Yeah.
If I need somebody to play bass in the studio, and so I do a lot of work too. Probably more of that than the band stuff is working with individual artists. You know, it's to me, it's more important to be creatively invested in the process and the creation. So I love that part.
Yeah. I get it. I truly get it. And I think there's some minds and personalities and musical styles that mesh and some that don't. Yeah, I truly believe it. There's another guy out there. It's not a plug. I just like the guy. He bought the London Bridge studio, Jonathan Plum, and yeah,
Oh, John. Yeah,
if I could afford him, I'd probably go to him. But yeah, he's a great producer too.
Well, it's London Bridge, right?
Yeah.
It's London Bridge, so it's going to cost you to go there, right?
Yeah, well, he does a lot of the production in his studio.
Yes.
And then he goes there for, like, for instance, I don't think you could find a better place to do drums. Yeah.
It's one of the best rooms out there for drums. That's right.
Yes, yes. So with that being said, what are you guys doing during COVID?
I shut down for 10 days when they first came out in March, you know, the 2 weeks to, you know,
Yeah.
flatten out the curve. So I shut down, so I didn't know what was going on. And then I finally figured it out pretty quick. And I just, you know, I was working with Limberlost on a song at the time. And so I just called the band up and I said, any of you sick? No, me either. Let's get back to work. So, you know, so it was like, you know,
How did that affect you, Scott?
It wasn't good. COVID was, my wife and I had sold our home, and we were renting. My mother had a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house, which is 2 levels, and we took over this lower level, which is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And she is at the time was 85 years old, and so the responsibility to ensure that she didn't become ill was overwhelming. And so we, regardless of what we believed or didn't believe or what we were being told, we went the extreme measures to protect her health. It was the most important thing. So really, I had my DAW hooked up, but I didn't do a heck of a lot during that time.
Can I interrupt you for just a sec? What's a DAW?
I'm sorry, what's that?
What's
a audio workstation.
Oh,
Pro recording software.
Okay.
But it wasn't good for. It wasn't very good for me. I didn't enjoy it. My wife and I became very close, and I think people married couples either got really close or they got really hated each other by the end of COVID. But we stayed home, and it wasn't much about music in that time. I played a lot of guitar, and I was recording basic ideas, and that I always do it. I do it on my phone. I use a voice memo thing in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I'm strumming around my guitar, and I go, "Hey, well, that's really cool." So I record that little bit, and then that's still what I do. It's something I've always done. But those little bits, it's funny how you go back to them a month later, and you remember, oh yeah, last December I played this little thing. What was that? And I play it back, and I'm going, wow, what? I had forgotten it. So if it wasn't for that little voice memo thing, there's songs that wouldn't. The Rain is one of those, and The Rain was many of these bits that it kept growing and growing and getting better and better and more focused. And I just kept recording these little bits of it, and finally it became that intro of The Rain became what it was, and the rest of the song was written around that beginning riff, that little acoustic part in C sharp minor, and the slide part that comes in there was inspired by Stone Temple Pilots.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to clarify this in my mind. So you take bits and pieces and then put them all together creatively. So now you don't just sit down and write the song and write the music. You kind of, to develop it, you use these little bits and pieces that you record. Am I understanding that correct?
It's always different, but sometimes it'll be just one intro piece, and The Rain was one intro piece that grew into. From there, I just expanded it. It just became. I went into a strumming part, and the strumming part was pretty loosely based upon the picking part, but it sounded different because of the groove it had, and you can hear it in the song. The intro piece is kind of this thing you're going like, what is this going to be, Sweet Mountain Blue or something? And then it turns into Stone Temple Pilots when the groove happens with that slide at the end of the intro, and it kind of keeps that groove the rest of the way all the way until the end. And that outro is my favorite thing I've ever done. Just the feel of it on The Rain, I get goosebumps. And I wrote it, but Dave, I tell people that I provide the paint and he paints the picture.
Yeah.
He didn't think it was going to be a song. He thought, I'll never probably get anywhere with this one.
No.
I don't think you're right on that one, but so there's The Rain, right?
Yeah. Pretty song. Beautiful song. Well, when you were going through this, you were working with Limberlost. Were you then totally disconnected from each other in producing? You and Scott and David?
There's occasional phone calls, I think, but pretty much I wasn't producing much of anything for a couple of years there. Mm-hmm. And, it really deteriorated at that point it wasn't until I moved out of my mother's place. We bought this house. We're down in Ocean Shores now. We have a beautiful home in Ocean Shores. I feel.
Oh, yeah, it's a beautiful place.
But when
That's where we are now.
yeah, we're in.
Oh, really?
When I
I
moved
thought
out,
I smelled salt water. No.
you can hear the surf from my house.
Oh,
We're a mile from Damon Point here.
oh.
But when I moved here, I'd sold off some gear. I was saying I'm just not gonna. I'm done. I didn't want to play live anymore. I just didn't see the point of it, and I was still writing. I'll never be able to stop writing, but I just didn't want to do it professionally. I didn't want to. I just thought I'm just going to go fishing and I'm going to go clamming and I'm going to go harvest oysters and goof around and just be retired. And it just didn't work out. Dave offered me, actually, it was for Limberlost. He offered me a chance. They were just ready to go on this European tour.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they gave some guitar parts, and they're in between guitar players for a second there. So I recorded a rhythm track, and I didn't get it. Someone else did a better rhythm track than I did. So I'm going, my head went down. Oh, gee, okay, I really duffed that one. And then he said, well, that this guy doesn't play lead, so give us a lead part. So I did all the lead parts from front to end, and those got accepted and actually went on the release. Mm-hmm. And that feeling, it's just like, giving a junkie heroin. I was right back. I couldn't stop, and from there I had to get my studio up here in Ocean Shores in order to do that little bit. So it gave me the excuse to finally hook up all my stuff. And so I did that, and then it turned into The Rain, and there's a couple other songs that you haven't heard yet. And Whisper was a song that was...
That's the other one. Whisper.
Whisper was a song that was the intro part, the D minor intro part was done in 2012. It was going to be on the second album for Seven's Revenge, and I wrote all the music for that, and the drummer couldn't play it, so
No,
it didn't work, and so we canned it. So after I left Seven's Revenge, I kept goofing around with it, and by about 2016, it had morphed into I was trying to do an Evanescence style thing. So Dave and I got together. I was recording all these heavier guitar parts and making it really eclectic between the different divisions of the song, the different sections. And Dave came up with just a brilliant drum thing. And the thing is that the verse is in 11/8. So not very many people play in 11.
I would have no idea how to play that.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing. It just came out that way, but it doesn't. When you listen to it, most people don't notice that it's polymetric. So
that's the idea.
It's if you're doing it well, it should be that way.
Wow.
It's like Brubeck and Take 5, But this was this 11/8 thing, and we could then that was 2016. So that was 8 years ago, and we tried to get singers to do it, and we failed like 3 or 4 times. We couldn't get a singer to. They were going like, it doesn't make sense to me. So
yeah, the strange. Yeah.
And The Rain got accepted. He goes, I think you did a pretty good job on that. And I go, okay. And so I'm imitating him right now. And then after I'd done The Rain, we tried one more time to get somebody to sing it, and it just no. And so I do. So well, if we're gonna release a song, I'm gonna have to sing it myself. So I wrote the lyrics and sent them a demo within a couple of weeks, and then we spent a couple months getting my vocals where they're good enough to put on a release, and what you hear is the end result of that. He did his production work on that is some of the most amazing things. Put your headphones on and turn it up, and oh my goodness, there's so much stuff going on in there, and it's just
a lot of moving parts,
and it's just done, and that's all Dave. He's just an amazing producer, and my advice to anybody that's recording and I know you work with Chad Quiston, by the way. An amazing musician.
Yes.
guitar player and a lovely man. But my advice is always send your ego away somewhere else and listen to that.
Exactly.
He can hear what you're doing. He can read your mind, and what the stuff you're telling him, a good producer is listening to you.
That's right. He does that. Yeah. I don't play any of this. I mean, I just sing, and he puts all the parts in there, but I tell him what I want and what I want them to do. And then, and then I give him use your best judgment because he knows so much more than I do. I mean, I don't know. You guys are kind of far beyond me. I'm like way out there, and you reach a certain level of knowledge and perfection that, I'm not at. I'm country, and I keep it simple.
It's about
what was that?
It's about capturing the feel. It's got to be something that the audience. You have to produce a song so that the audience hears it and thinks that they did it, right? So it touches them.
Well, I don't exactly do that. I'm kind of a rebel. What I do is I write about things that I know that has a message that I want to get out there because, I have a master's degree and I have on a course with Donna, my doctorate, and then I thought, what the hell, this isn't getting me anywhere. I don't want to be a professor, all stuffy. And then when I ended up in music, and I just started writing because of Raymond Hayden and Jessica. They both urged me to write a song. I wrote my first song during COVID. And, the thing that I write, I don't care if anybody likes them. I try to just convey what's coming out of me when I hear something and it sets me to thinking. So I don't follow any rules. I don't figure it's ever going to be sold, but I had quite a response from Lavender Fields. It was amazing. So, and that was enough for me. I don't make money at this. I don't know how to do that. Well, that's what I was going to ask you about that. Do you make any money from any of your songs?
Money? What's that?
We spend money.
Yes, well said, musician words.
So, the whole marketing thing for musicians is it's difficult.
I make the same amount that I made from 2000 to 2015 with 5-piece band. I make less now than I did then.
Yeah.
Well, I think live performances is the payday for most musicians now.
Yeah.
If you're touring or if you're playing the big clubs in town, right. That's the time I was really making any kind of notable money at all. And even then, original musicians, you're not making what the tribute band guys or the cover band guys are making. They're making more money and without the art. I mean, it's playing covers is great and it's really instant gratification, all that stuff. Writing songs and recording your own material and performing them, it's art. It's all about the art. It's my payday is when someone sends me a message and they say, man, it was healing to hear
exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
I story in your song, and it was healing for me. And
you touch the soul.
I just get goosebumps just even thinking about it. That's my payday. I want a lot of people to like my music. I do. I admit it. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Every artist does that once.
But and the money is not the important thing for me. But a lot having.
That's why we're poor, I think.
We're getting a lot of people exposed to your art is. I think if you're a painter, you're a sculptor, whatever you are, everybody wants that. Mm-hmm. And if you got art like you were talking about, where you're getting into people's emotions, you're touching them in some way, bring them joy or healing or a little bit of sorrow in their world. And that's what The Rain is actually. If you catch the lyrics for that, that's what the song's about. That's what I'm about. That's what it's an art for me, and it's about reaching people, reaching their hearts and minds and souls, and touching people and moving people's emotions. That's the payday.
We were watching a show this weekend. It all starts with the song. It's about the Nashville songwriters. And one that thing is, I can't remember the guy who made the quote, but it says what it's all about is 3 chords and the truth.
Oh, that's country.
Another thing they had there was a guy that he had a notebook. He carries a notebook around with him all the time. And anytime a lyric, just a line of lyric or a title of a song, he writes it down. And that's kind of like what Scott was saying. Every time he got a musical thing, he just turns his phone on and he records whatever it is that's in his head. And then those things become cannon fodder for a new song at some point. You never know, right? So I thought that was pretty cool. 3 chords and the truth.
I say that all the time. Only it's way more than 3 chords now.
He said that too. Eventually,
He did.
That'd be 4 or 5. You know?
And I'll be danged if I'm going to try to do anything that Rihanna. What's it, Rihanna? Is she the one that did the country music rock thing just lately? Did you guys? Oh, you don't know. You don't follow country. Yeah, there's a rock and roll artist lady. I think her name is Rihanna. That did country, and oh boy, when did she open up Pandora's box?
Yeah. Well,
I always thought a lot of the modern country guys, like Rascal Flatts, for example, they were a rock band that they changed their style to because country was more accessible to them, and I love them. They could have called themselves whatever they want. I think they got great songs, and I love the guitar heavy music and a little bit of country. I like country music a lot. I was raised on it, and it's fun music, and it has that component of real life component, real emotion.
3 chords.
Some of it, some of it is just a good old boy down south kind of life. Your dogs and your beer and your girlfriend and pick up trucks and dirt. but that's not the kind of country that I'm trying to put through. I want the elements of that, and I want to keep the older country in there, but I also want the creativity. A lot of the new stuff is taken. So, anytime I just jam now. I do music production, but I also just jam. And it never comes out the same because these rock and rollers have no clue. They don't know what the lead licks are in. They don't know the fills in between. And if they're not country, they don't even know the beats. And so it's always new. It's always improv. And it's always giving me ideas because it's a mixture of blues and country and Americana and God knows what else. Even punk, I think, and improv, and it stimulates the creativity, I think, at least of this artist. So,
well, I feel the same way as you do. It sounds like you have a very eclectic. Your influences were very eclectic, and there are rock guys that know the bluegrass and the country stuff. By the way, I'm one, but I don't use it in my music. But there's guys out there that can do it.
Yeah, there are. I've run into a few of them, far and few between.
Well, the guys you're hanging out with, you got a lot of really talented people. The list of artists that you mentioned you're working with are top-notch guys.
Yes, they are.
It's really. So they could probably play anything you want, but it's always a growing experience and songwriting and then transferring your writing to a recorded art is that's just kind of another level,
Right. And like you said, without that good producer, it wouldn't be the same. You have to have that to make that music and bring it all together because my old saying, 2 heads are better than one, and I believe that.
True. Mm-hmm. It is. It's different than just going and taking your acoustic guitar and playing, which is a beautiful thing, by the way. Playing live in front of a crowd of people, it's great. Music recording is a different world, but it starts there. It starts with just that acoustic guitar and the performance, like Dave was saying earlier, and it's a great way to get your music started for sure.
Yeah, Chad is also my guitar instructor. I think he's probably given up on me once or twice, but um, he shows me licks and things that I don't use, but I know what they are and I can play them. And I figure when I'm playing and I'm serious, I'm at a gig and I've got the right people with me. Um, I don't need to know those licks. That's what the lead does. And I'm not going to be stepping on his toes, And I don't know those bass licks, although I hear them. I mean, that's what I'm listening to, that and the drummer. Every drum repeat I'm listening to. But that's their job. And so all I do is play rhythm and sing. And, sometimes it's hard to connect the two. And sometimes it's even harder to connect everybody in the group. And, that takes time. I mean, if you're going to play with a group, it takes time for that group to finally mesh. And like we were just talking about Limberlost and Raymond Hayden, and he's done that. He's reached that level where the bands that he plays in are together, at least in my opinion, from my view. I'm not where you're at, David, but I'm connoisseur of their music. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's a different approach to what they're trying to do. They want to be a touring band, so there's a whole different.
Yeah.
On an original level, you mentioned, Black Velvet. We've done quite a few cover songs our way, and licensed to record and perform those songs. And we'll release those songs. Jolene,
really great version.
We did Jolene, and so it's the whole philosophy is a different thing. The end goal is to do. Well, they went on tour of Europe, but
yeah, they did. They did quite an interesting tour too.
And that was a big eye opener for them, because that was this is how you do it. And actually, if you want to be that kind of artist, a touring artist, you should be in Europe. You have a really hard time in America. It's easier for you to be exposed in the UK and Germany and Italy than it is over here. It used to be in the old days of the music business, you got to be a big deal locally and then regionally and then nationally and then internationally. It's the other way around now. You get more
from
internationally, and it works backwards to locally. You may never even be any big deal in your local. Right? So it's just it's all changed. The internet changed everything, really.
So I'm doing it backwards. We have a great following here in Ocean Shores amongst the. It's a people that I still look at sometimes. I'll look at that old guy. He probably listens to Hank Snow and that. And then the guy I eventually meet the guy and talk to him. And goes, yeah, my favorite band that comes to town is Hell's Bells because they play AC/DC, and I'm going like, oh my goodness, I'm stereotyping, and there's a lot of guys our age that just were born on Led Zeppelin and Cream and Black Sabbath and stuff, and
Led Zeppelin,
and Led Zeppelin,
and Led Zeppelin,
and Led Zeppelin,
and John Bonham and Led Zeppelin.
Well, honest to God, I never listened to rock. I was country and folk and Americana, and never really paid much, and bluegrass, but I never paid much attention to rock because guys are puking on stage and wearing weird costumes and breaking guitars that I would have, picked up the piece and glued together just to play. And so and their language and their, the music, the anger in the music was just never my thing. So when I got here, now I'm learning.
Yeah, good.
Well, we're both big bluegrass fans, and some country, and that it's a great art. I took bluegrass lessons to learn how to do that picking, that flat picking.
I can't do that.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But most rock players cheat, and they're picking and they're doing hammer-ons and pull-offs.
I don't know what those are, but I do know it's called. I can't remember what they call noodling.
Noodling,
yes.
Yeah, a good bluegrass player can do it all day long.
I have 38 acres in the bluegrass capital of the world, in Sparta, Tennessee.
Wow.
In fact, I'm moving my production operation over there in the next year or so.
Wow.
And he plays.
I don't know about that.
He plays with Sweet Thing and the Stumblers, and they're an American style band. Amazing. amazing, top notch. And you Google them sometime. They're Sweet Thing and the Stumblers.
Thang, Thang.
Thang.
Sweet
Sweet
Thang
Thang.
and the Stumblers.
They're so good. It just, they just did a live recording, and no frills. He just put mics in a room and they did it, and it's one of the most beautiful, pure, great tone. Everything's just perfect. It's wonderful to hear, and that's the stuff Dave does, and those guys in the Sweet Thing. They're just top notch. It's so wonderful to hear really good musicians performing their craft.
It was a baptism of fire. I just bought a new to me console. It was a 1986 Sony MCI 36 channel console, and I just got done commissioning it, and it was the first recording I did on it was last Wednesday on a new song that we're producing for them. So it's but it's no frills, no fancies, 6 mics in the room, count off the song and go and record
Oh
it.
my gosh. That talking about levels, that's a much higher level than most.
That's what I call real musicianship, really.
Well, true.
If you couldn't play time or sing in tune, you didn't get the gig. It was everything.
Yeah, I noticed that there's a lot of people gigging out there, and I say to myself, well, why aren't you gigging? I mean, you at least know how to stay on key. I mean, on pitch. But I guess, everybody's to themselves. But yeah, it is. I hear you. I absolutely hear you. And those levels are important. And when I chose people to play with me after I wrote my first song, I chose Chad Quist because I realized that he was at a level not found very often around here.
Yeah.
Do you guys know Jerry Batista?
Yeah, they're around.
Huh?
Yeah.
Pardon?
And as bluegrassy as the Stumblers are, those guys over in Sparta are like, oh my God, and it's like, oh, you're a really great banjo player, dude. Man, rock on. He goes, just something I do. He sells cars at the Chevy dealer during the day, and he's just
Yeah.
Unbelievable musicians and incredibly humble.
Yeah. Well, one thing I learned in college, if nothing else, from working with some of the best professors where I was going to college in the political science department, was the people who knew the most and had written all these great books and had these really good ideas and theories that they were testing and putting out there were usually very humble men. They weren't braggadocious. They weren't full of themselves. They were just very down to earth and regular people. And if you met them on the street, you'd never know what they were capable of or had done in their lives.
Yes.
And that's important.
Walking the path is a very humbling experience.
Yes.
So it keeps you in your lane. If you know
Right.
what that keeps you humble in your lane, because if you ever think you're there,
Yeah, you never are.
no there. There's
Yes.
only the path to the
That's
cliff,
right.
the path.
Absolutely. Well, we've got about 2 minutes here. And of course, nobody came online because of this. So I'm going to have you guys back if you'll do this again, maybe 6 months from now.
Sure.
2 years. Okay. So people can ask questions and really do this thing for you guys. I didn't know this happened. I apologize to you. But we will have you back, and hopefully we can interact with other people. But this way, it's not going to be live, but people will listen. But what I'd like to ask both of you, and I guess I'll start with Scott first, is do you have any, we've been doing that all along, but do you have any specific thing that you can remember along your journey in music that drew you to it and made you say, I'm going to really work hard at this because this is speaking to me and I want to develop this because it's part of my whole personality? Same with you next, David. You're next.
I remember it. I was 15 years old. I was taking classical guitar already. And my favorite bands at the time were Grassroots and Three Dog Night. They were really popular. I bought their albums. I already loved the Beatles. I knew who they were, but into more poppy things that were a little bit more kind of fast-paced rocking stuff sooner or later, and songs like that. And the Grassroots, all their stuff. Mama Told Me Not to Come was like, whoa, what is this? Great. And I went over to a friend's house, and his brother was about 6 years older than him. We went over to visit his brother, and he asked me, "Oh, what's your favorite band?" I go, "Oh, Three Dog Night. They're the best rock band in the world to me right now. And I'm 15 years old." And he goes, "Oh yeah." Hold my beer. He drops a needle on Led Zeppelin 1, song 1, Good Times, Bad Times. And I'll tell you, oh, I didn't get 1 minute of that song, and I go, I gotta be a rock guitar player.
Three Dog who?
I've been been a Led Zeppelin freak ever since, because the music stuff,
Yeah.
that Jimmy Page and all the great engineers that he worked with, Eddie Kramer and all those guys, fantastic. They were way ahead of their time as far as music production went, in my opinion. And then Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck, of course. After that, I discovered them, and it just kept going, snowballing from there. That was, for me, was.
How about you, David?
Same story for me. I mean, in terms of things that impressed me that I had to know, it's an endless stream of things like that. And of course, I'm an old guy, so I've kind of lived through the whole rock and roll thing from Elvis on, right? And then the Beatles hit the scene, and of course everybody was affected the same way. The bands doing their own music in the studio and what have you. But then Led Zeppelin hit the scene, and John Bonham, and I'm like going, okay, this is the way. And so it to me, it took what was going on to a whole different level. And it was and still am a huge fan. I own everything they've ever done.
Wow.
So when I studied how John Bonham does things, and my drumming style is all over the place before that. But after that, if you hear what you're hearing the drums on the records that we've done, it's not rocket science. It's pretty straight ahead stuff, minimalistic, not a lot of overplaying or a lot of fills or anything like that.
It's 7/8.
It's
or
just
11/8.
or whatever, but
11/8.
that. But it was a while back. We did a song together, and early on. And drummers would come into the studio, and I go, on this song right here, I played the greatest fill I've ever played in my life, and they go, really? And I go, well, he goes, let's hear it. So I said, all right. So we're playing the song. Of course, it happens at the end of the song, very close to the end of the song. And all it is a spot right in the perfect place in the song. And I just hit this big floor drum, this big, that's it. Because it's the right thing at the right time that does the song.
Absolutely. I hear you.
That's what I learned from John Bonham, and I live by that every day. So,
well, you know what? It's already 1:02, and I have to leave you guys. And I want you back, both of you,
Okay.
either together or singly. I don't care how, but there's so much we have. We just hit the surface. We're not even into a lot of this, right?
So you have to remind me, if we do it again, to remind me to wear a blue shirt instead of my red.
Why? I like the red. It looks country. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and being with me. And I'm sorry this happened. I don't know why they did that. I mean, I pay big bucks for this, so I'm irritated. I pay yearly for this thing, and that's why I have a sponsor, because I'd never be able to get that money together, by myself. I don't get any money from this. But anyway, I do want to thank you again. I will have you back, and you have a good rest of your week and a good rest of your months until I contact you again, or you contact me.
Thanks for having us, Joy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye, guys. Okay, now let's see if I can end this thing. Well, that's it for me. I got to solve this problem and try to figure out how I can get you guys back on here on Facebook. But in the meantime, I do have an interview there. I have a drummer interviewing me next week. Tune in. See you down the road somewhere, or see you soon, at least next week, Monday, 2:00. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.